Շնորհակալություն, այժմ խոսքը փոխանցեմ մասը Հայաստան մշտական ներկայացուցիչ պարոն Դմիտրի Մարիյասին, խնդրեմ պարոն Մարիյաս.
Thank you very much. Prosecutor General, Deputy Minister, distinguished colleagues, ambassadors, senior government officials, Mr. Zadayan, thank you for giving UNDP an opportunity to participate in this very important conference. And then, starting, I'd like to note the special role this conference plays and the timing of which is excellent. It's a time when Armenia, as the Ambassador Shvetarsky mentioned, has actually showed real commitment through action on anti-corruption front. At the same time, institutional measures, making sure long-term effect of anti-corruption measures takes root, is still ahead. So it's a transition period for Armenia, moving away from swift action to longer-term thinking on how anti-corruption strategy should look for the country, what institutional arrangements should be in place, and what changes in the society need to occur for corruption to become a much less prevalent phenomenon. We don't say to be completely eradicated, because I don't think there is any society on earth where corruption is fully eradicated, but societies need to manage corruption. We need to understand it first and foremost. The Prosecutor General mentioned some very encouraging figures on how assets were recovered for the state. Data on corruption is a starting point for public policy. We know that globally, and this is a striking figure, over $1.2 trillion is lost annually in developing countries because of corruption. This is a figure that far exceeds the amounts of international aid, for example, going to developing countries. This is a figure that could have closed a lot of gaps, be it infrastructure or poverty gaps or governance gaps, and yet this money is lost to the state budgets of many countries around the world. So I think Armenia is on the path of recovering part of the funds that are being lost because of corruption, but the real figures and the real systemic effects of corruption are yet to be studied. Hopefully this conference will be one of the first steps in this direction. I will not repeat what the previous speakers already outlined as the key priorities for Armenia in the anti-corruption sector. I think we heard a lot about them. So instead of focusing on these really important areas of fighting corruption, I'd like to just point out three things that from UNDP perspective, and we are very happy to have our international experts from the Singapore Center for Public Service Excellence here with us today and throughout these days. They've come a long way to share the experiences from around the world. So you'll hear much more about the details of what it takes to fight corruption in different countries. I'd like to focus on three things. First, prevention. Prosecution is extremely important. However, the longer-term strategies need to focus on preventing corruption. And preventing corruption is about many different things. It starts with corruption-proofing of legislation, goes to much improved procurement regulations and methods to actually make sure that procurement is corruption-free, and this can be an important function of the future anti-corruption body. E-governance was mentioned. Digital tools create an environment in which corruption simply physically cannot take place very often, and I think Armenia's government commitment to digital transformation and e-governance is very important in this sense. And finally, salaries of public servants. We all know that a lot of corruption cases, especially small-scale corruption, is driven by low pay in public service. And so the efforts of the governments to optimize the structures, to secure more funding for salaries, as simple as it may sound, actually really matter for preventing corruption. Second area is partnership. We all here today, it's a great partnership between national and international stakeholders. We are very pleased that this initiative led by the European Union is so inclusive and so strategic by bringing together different partners. But there have to be deeper partnership with civil society for anti-corruption efforts to succeed. There has to be an outreach to the private sector, because very often corruption is a matter of misplaced incentives in business. And we need to work with private sector, with associations and individual businesses on this, especially small and medium enterprises. Finally, it's about partnership in the sense of coordination. No matter what shape the anti-corruption body takes, and it will be created, we understand, we also know the discussion is still ongoing about the functionality of the body. However, the importance of the judiciary in fighting corruption, making sure the courts are well equipped to play a key role in corruption cases, and due process is followed, are of utmost importance. And so there has to be partnership between different branches of power, not just between different parts of government. Finally, corruption is about behavior change. The Armenian Prime Minister has mentioned several times that the economic and social revolution is in the minds of people. We see this in Armenia. We see a significant transformation in how citizens perceive their role vis-à-vis the state. Much more has to be done to strengthen this. So behavior change is driven by education. So one area where anti-corruption efforts need to really be prioritized is at the very early stages of Armenian citizens' development in schools, if not before that, in education curricula, and in making sure that the value sets that Armenian education system is promoting help the government and the society to fight the problems of corruption. With this, I'd like to thank the Armenian Lawyers Association for hosting this and for driving this initiative. We're very pleased to join it, and I wish the conference a great success.